The time has finally come to realize who we really are. Throughout the course of history, a lot of conflict, division, and suffering will have never happened without one belief: the belief that we can choose our beliefs. All you have to do to show that it's impossible to choose them is to think about the ones you have and try to change them. Concentrate yourselves and be aware of your attempt to choose them. If we could do it, we could change them and change them again. We could also believe in anything, which is clearly impossible. As you well know, terrorism has increased internationally in recent years. Terrorists attack us because we are disbelievers. And when they will realize that we cannot choose our beliefs, they will no longer want to attack us. The conflicts created by religions and certain beliefs will be greatly reduced. I also have a lot more arguments to convince them to stop attacking us. But wait, that's not all. The simple argument that shows that it's not possible to choose our beliefs also applies to many other things, such as our desires, preferences, opinions, the faculty of understanding. We don't choose to understand or not understand something. In the given time, our brain understands or doesn't, or thinks that it understands, but doesn't. Dubbing. Try to choose to dub. Try to change the degree of conviction you have towards a belief. And yes, even the dubbing process is completely generated by the brain. Our emotions. It is sometimes possible to exacerbate certain emotions, but most of the time, they are completely generated by the brain. For example, we are not choosing to feel hatred or love, guilty or ashamed of ourselves. We don't choose to be stressful or anxious. Think about how you feel at any given moment and try to choose to not feel that way. Another example, like laughing or crying, it's easy to force yourself to laugh compared to forcing yourself to cry. Sometimes we do a little something to try not to laugh or cry, but then our brains make it happen. So no, in general, people don't choose to laugh, let alone cry. Memory. We don't choose to forget and to remember. Unfortunately, sometimes in the given time, our minds don't remind us of what we want to remember. When you realize that you don't choose to forget something, it's much easier to accept it, even if it's still disappointing. There are still some ways to help our brains better store information and remember something. It is also possible to concentrate internally and repeat certain things continuously, which is, in a way, another way of remembering. Our thoughts. Most of our thoughts are generated by our minds. They simply occur to us. Most of the time, we don't choose to think about the words that come to our minds and then use them in our writings or for something else. It's still possible to influence a percentage, which is probably minimal, of what we see in our minds. However, it doesn't mean that it's possible to choose to think about a new idea. Some other types of behavior are not completely generated by the brain, but probably most of the time. Every time we are aware of our attempt to choose some of these types of behavior, it never works. So obviously, it's absurd to think that when we are not aware of it, we could control them. Obviously, there are many other actions that are controlled by the brain, or at least partly. We have more control over some things than others. While we have a percentage of control over our own behavior, we still remain primarily biological machines. A special kind of biological machines. Many actions cannot occur without the desire to do them. Think about bad actions that are happening in the world or those that have happened to you. The main reason why people may have committed many of them has nothing to do with responsibility. Realizing it opens the door to compassion. It becomes much easier to forgive. It's also easier for us to feel less guilty about our own bad actions. And mixed with the realization that you can't choose to feel guilty, it becomes less unpleasant. Understanding that we don't have a lot of control over what leads us to act the way we do makes it easier for us to accept events and move on. We are approaching the beginning of a new era. One day, thanks to this knowledge, human beings could perhaps coexist much better, and this could lead to a peace that hopefully will last for a very long time. It is more than a revolution. It is the end of the world as we know it. And you are all called to collaborate with me to rebuild it. Reality has finally surpassed fiction. All hail the king.